So,
Yep.
Damien, it sounds like what you were saying was that SDRs don't have enough information to be actually useful. Is that did I understand that properly? And I'm not
Well, I want to be, yeah,
like
yeah, yeah. I want to be careful and
it's
respectful of the role.
well, no, like in the sense that SDRs, their job is mostly to set as many appointments as possible, right? And that's their business model, right?
Yes.
So
Yes. However, that could also be coming from an inbound motion too, right? There are many organizations where some, whether you call it an SDR or BDR, we can debate that for hours. Some do focus on the outbound, and that is how they're metriced and comped. But others, right, use that marketing engine, and they're solely responsible for inbound, and then you're qualifying them from an inbound perspective. So I think the challenge that I see with SDRs is most buyers, to John's point, aren't always 60% of the way in their buyer journey. But for those that are less educated, let's say I'm only 10%, right? I kind of sort of understand the problem, but I need someone who knows this problem, lives this problem, and can clearly articulate to me why I should prioritize this problem versus like the 50 other things on my priority list. An SDR is not the person to do that. That is not the role to fill that education spot. And I think that's the gap, right? If you've got someone who's 60% of the journey, they know the problem space, they know the solution or some of solutions, right? They've got a list of use cases, they've already got a budget set in mind. Like they're there, right? They want to talk to sales and like get the quotes, move it along, let's do a POC, right? An SDR can initially triage a lot of that, no problem. But when you're on the other side of the spectrum where you have very little education and very little understanding of what's going on, having a conversation, even with the AE, right, if they don't understand the problem area extremely well,
yeah.
is not always the best resource.
All right. So like what John was saying earlier, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, John, is that it depends, and there are certain situations we cannot have the pricing available. Is that accurate?
Correct.
And I think we all agree
Yeah.
on that.
Yes.
I'm putting my cards on the table. I agree with that. Uh, so okay, it's not possible to have the pricing online. Now we have the other problem is that SDRs or AEs are not technical enough or don't know the problem enough to discuss that. Would that be a better problem to focus on rather than focusing on having a pricing page online? Or is there anything else that I'm
I
missing that we could look at?
I I'd say you can certainly work on those in parallel. I mean, if we look at where the industry is going, I would not want to be a BDR, SDR, whatever in 4 or 5 years, because at that point, their bots are going to be buying from our bots. Right? And no, their lead generation, lead questioning engine is going to be talking to our lead generation and answering bots too. So I think that row at that level of sales is going to just slowly get squashed out of existence by automation, AI, ML, whatever you want to call it. So and more information is going to be made available through that mechanism. So I think it's something again, except for some of the smaller companies and special cases where that may eventually fade away over the next 4 or 5 years. That's maybe a radical thought, but I truly do believe that at least at the low end, their bots will be buying from our bots. Happens now with toilet paper and stuff like that. Why can't it happen with antivirus software?
So, well, you mentioned we have like 4 or 5 years of SDRs being around. Good luck, SDRs.
Yeah.
John has spoken. So, best, I guess, reskill. In the next 4 or 5 years, what can we do in the meantime to improve that process so that we can qualify in or out early, and we don't have to worry about spending half of because it's happened where not all account managers know what they're doing, and some SEs are brand new and they've never been taught to qualify or unqualify a deal.
Yes.
How do we mitigate that early on?
Yeah. So I think John said something really important that I want to poke at, right? There are larger organizations where your pricing is super complex. It depends upon a lot of variables, right? And you usually need to have several conversations in order to get there to some degree, do discovery and kind of scope it out. However, when you're that big of an organization, you also have data available to you and lots of it, right? So I think what I'm seeing a gap internally is let's say you can't put the pricing on the website, just too much complexity, right? it shouldn't preclude you as an AE or an SE from being able to give a pricing range, right? It doesn't mean that's the final price. It doesn't mean that's the starting price. But if I'm selling something to a customer, and the customer's in the healthcare space, and they say, well, you're qualifying me. They're not dumb. They know what we're doing, right? And they're asking questions of us. But before we proceed with this conversation, as part of the qualification point, right? I need a price. I need to know, is this in this year's budget? Do I need to go get more budget for next year? And you don't need to definitively say, oh, it's $50,000. That's it. I don't know anything about you, but here's the price. But being able to say, okay, based on your company size, right? Let's just say the number of users you have and the fact that you're in the healthcare space, we have the data to say your rough pricing is somewhere between $40,000 and $80,000 from similar types of customers. That is what you should budget for, either for this year or for next year.
And I am in full and violent agreement with that.
I'm
Hey.